go and get a potter's earthen bottle. Now remember, in chapter 18, he was talking about the vessel that he is making. Now in verse 19, he says, hey, go get that potter's earthen bottle and take to the ancients of the people and of the ancients of the priests. And he gives them all these words. I'm going to skip that for sake of time, but go down to verse number 10. You can read it in the context if you want. But notice what he says in verse 10. He says, then shalt thou break the bottle. So he says, go get that bottle that the potter was working on. And then he tells them, tell the people, and he goes over a whole list of their sins and things that they're not willing to get right with God. And then he says at the end, in verse 10, he says at the end of your little sermon, he said, then shalt thou break the bottle in the sight of the men that go with thee, and shall say unto them, thus saith the Lord of hosts, even so will I break this people and this city, as one breaketh the potter's vessel that cannot be made whole again, and they shall bury them in Tophet till there be no place to bury. And, I read that recently, and I thought to myself, wait a minute. Okay, so in Jeremiah 18, God says, I want to work on you. I want to mold you. You're marred, but I want to make you the way that I want you to be. And then in chapter 19, he says, you know what? Just take that potter's clay, that bottle of clay, and just break it. And you got to ask yourself this question. Well, what happened from chapter 18 to 19? What's the difference between the clay that God wants to mold and the clay that God has to break? And I'll tell you what the difference is. One is pliable, and the other is hardened. One is willing to be molded, and the other one has dried and will no longer mold. One is flexible, and God can still work on it, and God can still do something with it, and the other one has just become stubborn and stiff-necked, and God says, there's nothing I can do with this but break it. And the question I have for you is this: which one are you? Are you pliable? Are you flexible? Are you teachable? Are you willing to say to God, I have not yet apprehended? I can be corrected. I can be instructed. I can be made better. I can still have God mold and work on my life. Or are you the stubborn, stiff-necked bottle that has dried in the way you are, and God says, there's nothing I can do with it but break it. But use it as a bad example. What's the difference between chapter 18 and chapter 19? One is flexible. One is yielding. One is pliable, one is teachable, one is correctable, one is willing to be taught and instructed and reproved and rebuked, and one is not. So which one are you? I want you to decide, and I want myself to decide, that we will maintain a spirit of teachability, that we will maintain a spirit that says, I will get up every day on that wheel and let God mold me and let God, mold me in the way that He wants me to be. Don't ever get hard. Don't ever get to that place where you say, I'm not willing to be corrected. Because at that point, God would say of a child, might as well just take him to the gate and stone them, because there's no hope. Let's bow our heads and have a word of prayer. Heavenly Father,